what are some of the other very not extreme Democratic policies? Again, remember, they are running on two things. We're going to spend oodles of money, and also our opponents are really, really radical. And then it turns out that when it comes to social politics and fiscal politics and pretty much every other kind of politics, it's the Democrats who are extremely radical. Well, among the quote-unquote non-radical Democratic policies are a cram down from the federal government in the form of Title IX that would vastly expand Title IX to include sexual and gender identity. Okay, well, so the idea here is that according to the Biden administration, they're going to use Title IX, which is designed to protect women, right? It's like women's sports. It's against sexual discrimination, and it's meant to prevent discrimination against, a class of people known as biological women. Because when Title IX was written back in 1965, that's what woman meant. There was no idea that woman meant men who said he was a woman. Okay, but now the Democrats have decided that it does. And so now they're attempting to cram down a proposal that is going to extend protections under the law to include schools' obligation not to discriminate based on sex stereotypes, sex characteristics, pregnancy or related conditions, sexual orientation, and gender identity, which means that you could be forced in a school to call people by the opposite sex, or you could be in violation of federal law. This is extraordinarily radical stuff, obviously, and it's part and parcel of a broader left-wing agenda to destroy truth and destroy the nature of biological sex and to pretend there's no difference whatsoever between men and women. Well, now Florida is fighting back. The state of Florida is saying that its state should basically just ignore the federal government's guidance. Florida Education Commissioner Manny Diaz Jr. told school officials to ignore the guidelines entirely. He sent letters Thursday to superintendents, school boards, private school owners, and charter school governing boards that said guidance documents from the U.S. Department of Education and the Department of Agriculture. Is it, for all the LGBTQ plus minus divided by sign farmers out there, are not binding law, and asked school officials to refuse to change their practices. The U.S. Department of Agriculture, which is involved in things like school lunch programs, similarly announced in May it would begin interpreting Title IX to include discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. So the idea is that if your local school does not call boys girls and girls boys and facilitate social transitioning, then they will deny school lunches to the other kids. Diaz said, quote, specifically, for example, nothing in these guidance documents requires you to give biological males who identify as female access to female bathrooms, locker rooms, or dorms, to assign biological males who identify as female to female rooms on school field trips, or to allow biological males who identify as female to compete on female sports teams. But in a news release last month, the U.S. Department of Education Secretary Miguel Cardona said the guidelines in part will, quote, ensure all our nation's students, no matter where they live, who they are, or whom they love, can learn, grow, and thrive in school. According to Governor DeSantis, appearing in Tampa over the weekend, he said, basically, this would be for elementary school kids where they're instructed to tell them, well, you may have been born a boy. That may have been what you said, but maybe you're really a girl. That's wrong. That has no place in school. That's happening in our country. Anyone that tells you it's not happening is lying to you. And of course, DeSantis is exactly right. Now, the left is scared of DeSantis because the idea is DeSantis is the quote-unquote extremist. What exactly makes Ron DeSantis so extreme? Well, one of the things that makes him so extreme, according to Democrats, is that he says that he is going to sue a bar that hosts drag shows with kids, which sounds correct to me. It seems like child endangerment to me to bring children to shows where men dress as women and gyrate around in sexualized fashion. That does not seem like raising a child in a healthy fashion. DeSantis said it used to be people have different views about what they want to do as adults, but it used to be kids are off limits. No one wanted to bring the kids into any of this stuff. We've got to get back to that. Florida is attempting to revoke the liquor license at Our House, a Miami area bar. A complaint details numerous incidents in which children were allegedly exposed to explicit sexual content there with the full knowledge of the bar. In one instance, a male dancer wearing a G-string stuffed with dollar bills with his buttocks fully exposed paraded a young girl aged 3 to 5 through the restaurant while holding her hand, according to the complaint. In another instance, a presumably male dancer gyrated and pole danced in revealing women's clothing while waving dollar bills. Our House was not only aware that kids may have been present during such performances, it also offered a children's menu for kids 12 and under. So who's the extremist here? Who's really, really extreme? Is it Ron DeSantis? Or is it people like AOC who's going on national television talking about how men who dress up as women and gyrate around on television are actually the greatest among us? Here was AOC over the weekend.
The people who change what people think are artists and drag queens. And let's not forget who threw that first brick at Stonewall.
Yes.
You know, that is what led to us passing the Equality Act in the House in this term, marriage equality. It starts with you. I mean, you're patriots. You are. You are. You are patriots. And I'm so proud of you all. I'm so proud to live in this country with you and with your mother and with all of us as family.
Thank you, girl.
We love you.
So I have a question. Who seems more extreme here? Who seems more radical? Well, Tulsi Gabbard is out there on the Democratic side, and she has been moving steadily away from the Democratic Party on these issues because she's not an insane person. And she says, the Democrats who are fighting in favor of the idea that quote unquote gender affirming healthcare, meaning puberty blockers and surgeries on kids, that this is a good thing. Democrats moving in that way are engaging in child abuse. Here's Tulsi Gabbard over the weekend.
The FDA made a disturbing but not at all surprising announcement just a few days ago about children's health. Now, if you haven't heard about it or if you missed it, it's because the mainstream media and the Biden-Harris administration have been completely silent on it. Now, this warning that the FDA issued was basically saying that puberty blockers can cause serious health risks for our kids. Unfortunately, at almost the exact same time the FDA issued this warning, Biden-Harris administration officials were making public statements actively promoting the use of puberty blockers and irreversible surgeries for kids. Now, let's be clear. This administration is dangerously promoting child abuse.
Tulsi Gabbard, Democrat, and she happens to be correct about that. So who exactly is the radical here? Who exactly is the radical group here? I think the answer is pretty obvious to anyone with a brain. And Democrats who continue to maintain that it's radical Republicans who are a threat to the country while they toss trillions of dollars, bad money after bad money, into an inflationary economy, while they ratchet up taxes, while they promote radical, insane social policy. It seems pretty obvious to Americans which way this is going to go, which is why no matter the Democrats are now proclaiming their newfound enthusiasm for 2022, things are going to go a lot worse than they think they're going to go in November. I hope you enjoyed that clip from The Ben Shapiro Show. If you did, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you stay up to date with all our future content.